But the actual Greek word is pharmakia, which we get the word pharmacy from. Most people don't get into sorcery and witchcraft because one day they're walking along and they see a pentagram and they go, oh, let's play, okay? That's not how it usually happens. It usually happens through drugs. And the pharmacy, the sorcery that it's talking here about, it definitely is connecting it with the drug culture that we all know is there. And remember what I said, the number 2 money-making thing is illegal drugs. Number 3 is legal drugs. So it's not all, oh yeah, if you go out and, yeah, it's drugs. Not all drugs are bad. But this thing that happens here is just it's overwhelming. The people who are looking on can't even bear to look for fear they'll get caught up in the torment. And then verse 24 says this. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all who had been slain on the earth. What is the real food of this one world order? It's the church. And when she goes splat on the rock and you see what she's been eating, it will become obvious. There's the blood of the saints. There's the blood of the church. There's the blood of the martyrs. This is what she has feasted on, and it's over. The end is over. Now, the cool thing is that those martyrs that she consumed are watching her destruction from the comfort of the chamber of God. It's going to be way better than Bud Adams' sweet, I promise. And this is good news. It's good news because number one, this is the end of that chapter, and we get to move on to the 4 hallelujahs and the marriage supper of the Lamb. But know this, that God will be justified. God will bring, when it is time, and He's the one who gets to decide, not you or me, but when He decides it is time, this judgment will happen. It will be overwhelming. And what we see here is there won't be a trace left. I know a few years ago there was a skirmish somewhere in the Middle East. And the suggestion was made that, if we just go over there and we just carpet bomb the place and then redraw all the maps where that place just doesn't exist anymore, like it never existed. There are some countries who actually have done that. They have major things go wrong, and so they just change the map and they pretend like, oh, that was never there. This will be as if this never existed. It will be completely obliterated. Your sin that hung on the cross has been that kind of obliterated. It's gone. It was tied to a big millstone and thrown in Devil's Lake. Sploosh. It's gone. The fact that we continue to go back to it means that we haven't quite gotten that connection yet. That, look, I'm no longer bound to this. I'm a bondservant of Christ. I am seated with Christ. And where Christ is, everything's good. Now, we know that we have trials, we have tribulations, we have temptations, we have struggles. We are still in a lost world. We're still in a world where it's moving towards that one world order. But that's not who we are. That's just where we are right now. I want to encourage you this week to remember who you are and what you're connected to. What you're connected to is Jesus Christ. And we know that Jesus says He's seated at the right hand of the Father. So if we're in Christ, we're also seated at the right hand of the Father. Now, I know it would be awesome if every once in a while I could actually go there physically. But I do know this, that there are times that He takes me there spiritually. He wants to take us there spiritually. He wants to give us the comfort of what it's like to be in His dwelling place. I asked last week, in my prayer, I prayed that God would show you guys something this week. Just a positive thing, just an encouraging thing. Sarah, you said yours, so I'm letting everybody share here just for a second, because we're almost on time. So do y'all remember me praying that, okay? Did anybody else have God go, oh, hey, here's a little... All right. Do you want to share? Yeah. You can do whichever you prefer.
Mine actually happened Sunday morning before I got to church, so I told Dad, I was like, the Lord answered your prayer before you even prayed it. We got in the car last Sunday morning to come to church, and there was the most beautiful rainbow in our backyard. I'm sure some of you might have seen it also in different places. It was so gorgeous. It was so bright. It was, there were like these really dark clouds behind it, so it really stood out. It was very highlighted. And it was in a place in our yard where I've never seen a rainbow there before. We've seen a lot of rainbows, but never in that direction. So we got in the car. I was like, Oaks, look at the rainbow. We talked about it. Then as we were driving in, we were on this road called North Happy Hollow Road, and there's this cow pasture. Guys, we literally saw the end of the rainbow touching down in the field, and then saw the other end of the rainbow touching on one of our neighbors' houses. I have never, ever, ever seen a rainbow touching down, like so firm. It looked so firmly planted, and it was just amazing. And as I started praying about it Monday morning and Tuesday and in through the week, the Lord was showing me that it was like He was proving to me that His promises are firm. And it was like I could see the Lord's feet stepping down, like that's my feet, standing on my word, standing on my promise. And He said to me, I think it was Monday morning, He said, Sarah, I don't do pieces of promises. My promises are complete. They're full and they're complete. So that was my cool story.
Awesome, good. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, baby.
Okay, I don't like doing this. But it was kind of neat when we had the New Year's service where some of you got up and shared a personal testimony of something that had happened that was such a blessing. In 2017, I was sitting there and I was thinking, well, we have a lot of things that were kind of pressing down on us at the time, but I sat there and I just felt like, I think that in 2018, I'm going to be able to say, this promise I feel like God has given me has come to pass, and that God has, given me that. And this just happened a lot sooner than I thought it would, so it's just been an amazing week. But Wednesday, I was, it's just been kind of a crazy week, but I had something really pressing on me, and I was here in my prayer journal, and I was writing a prayer about something completely different, and I started to close it. And then this situation that we've been praying about for several months, it just came to me, and this is the prayer I wrote about it. And I'll kind of give you a little backstory here. But suddenly I said, also, thank you, Abba, for Carter's healthy eyes. No connective tissue problems there, and I'll explain that in a minute. Bring his chest and spine into the plan, the perfect plan you have for our bodies. Pour healing out on Laura this day. All that, and I kind of go into what was going on with her. Give her a hope and understanding through this struggle. And so that's what I prayed Wednesday morning. And what we've had going on with Carter, I'll just briefly tell you, is he's had some growth issues, some things that just weren't developing in the way that we had expected them to. And the diagnosis is that there was something going on with his DNA, so that some connective tissue was connecting incorrectly in his body. And so they called it, if you research the problem, there's a protein mutation, and there's also a gene that is causing a protein that should be made not to be made. And we've had a number of great blessings along this journey. It could have been a huge problem for his heart, and he had medical testing, and his heart was perfect. This was in December, so we were praising God for that, and Rebecca Steele, she really blessed me in this when I was telling her about it, and she said, the Lord's telling me you and Christian need to stand in the gap for Carter and pray for him. I believe it was for 15 days, and we did. And we felt that God was promising us that he was going to be whole and he was going to be complete. Another big thing that happened this last week, we had him in at the ophthalmologist, and the connective tissue in his eye was perfect. Everything was just as God designed it to be. So he had, 2 areas that we've still been praying over. And so Wednesday, I had an appointment. I won't give too many details here, but we make visits to a friend of mine who is an herbal consultant, and she does muscle response testing with us. And Carter was not supposed to be with me to go that day. And actually, my friend Gina, who works with me on this, she had messaged me and told me not to come, that she was in the middle of something. She needed me to wait and not come. But I did not get her messages, and for random reasons, I ended up bringing Carter with me. And the reason she had asked me not to come was because she was praying with a group of ladies there, and she wanted me to wait till they had finished their prayer circle. Well, they didn't think I was coming. They thought I'd gotten these messages because I'm always just like right on my phone, apparently. And but I did not. And it was a divine appointment because right before I arrived, they were praying, and God gave them, one of them, a word that someone needed healing for a protein mutation. And then we come in, and they're like, oh, you came, you're here. And they asked if they could pray over us. So we had 3 women that were all 3 receiving revelations from the Lord for like an hour and a half praying with us. And when they prayed over Carter, and God gave them a vision of a wall up, and we prayed for the wall to come down so he could receive healing. And one of the ladies, she said, he needs to kick it down. And this was just bizarre, and we were like, well, he takes martial arts, and he's got a mean karate kick. And so he was totally obedient to what God wanted him to do there. He got up and he gave the most awesome karate kick way up in the air and kicked that wall down. And we believe God poured healing out over him. And before we left, God gave him a blessing and named him Lion, and named Laura Light Bearer. And what was one thing that was really cool is the word that was spoken over me was released. And Emma had gotten up December before last, and she had spoken to the church about not being inhibited in their praise and in their worship. And I went home, and I was working on making some Christmas gifts with essential oils that day, and I was blending different things. And I blended this oil here, and I loved the way it smelled, and I prayed about, God, what should I give the name to this? I'm giving this out as Christmas presents. And I felt like God said, release. I wanted to pray to be released of these inhibitions I was feeling that I was having. And the word that was spoken over me was released. So this is released, and that was released with an ED. And so anyway, that's it.
Amen. Thank you. I want to encourage you before you leave today. First of all, let me see. Anybody else have something like, yeah, I think what you prayed for, I actually had? If so, tell somebody about it. For 2 reasons. Number 1, to just bring God glory. But number 2, when he sees our gratitude, when we have somebody be grateful, we enjoy giving them stuff because they're grateful. I'll tell you this as we close. 2 years ago, I let us run out of propane. Last year, I don't know. It was a bad thing. I heard from many of you how bad that was. I did it again this year. Idiot. I'm just an idiot, but that's okay. But like we were on our second delivery of propane, and just because of the coldness this year and all that other stuff. So last Friday, I kept